Hey everybody, this is Mike Anderson along with my awesome teammate Miss Sheryl Driggers coming to you live on the road with today's topic about how to show employees appreciation. Now, I just got landed in New Jersey, just got into my hotel room. I'm here for one of my Spartan 20 group meetings. Actually, we're touring Jerry McNee's shop from Ultimate Auto Body here, and looking forward to a great couple days here in New Jersey. Miss Sheryl, where are you coming to us from?
I just landed in the great state of Kansas. I am in Abilene, Kansas this week, working with a shop on leadership and customer experience.
Awesome. Well, listen, everybody. So, what is the topic and what is today's episode about? Well, it's about how to show employees appreciation. So, Troy, I don't know if you could advance that slide for me, but I'd greatly appreciate it. So, obviously, Sheryl, you're really big on customer appreciation and just culture and things of that nature. So, Sheryl, why don't you share a little background for us on why culture or helping people to feel appreciated is important?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. Culture is more than a buzzword. I talk about this all of the time. Our culture impacts our customer experience. Our culture impacts whether we can retain our team members and they want to come to work. There was a study done led by Ducker Carlisle organization in partnership with SCRS, where they surveyed 840 technicians. For the purpose of understanding satisfaction factors with technicians. I mean, I think everyone in our industry is well aware that we have a labor shortage, right? And so we've got to do a better job of understanding what technicians want in a workplace. And what you're seeing here on this slide deck right now is from their study, where technicians listed the number one reason of leaving their current job was because they did not feel valued or a bad culture. And so, Troy, if you don't mind progressing to the next slide, we want to have this conversation, and we're so excited to have Dr. White here with us today because we need this in our organizations. We need to learn how to show appreciation, authentic appreciation in the form that the team member wants within our cultures. I mean, we see in our organizations rising stress and friction, right? Mike, with claims negotiation and all of the demands that are on our team, there is an unheard of level of stress that we are facing right now within our organizations. We've talked about that we have the labor crisis. And so retention and culture matter more now than ever before. And as we will learn from Dr. White today, appreciation is not the same as recognition. So I'm so excited, Mike, to introduce Dr. Paul White to the podcast On the Road with Mike Anderson. Troy, could you?
Yeah, we got Dr. Paul White here live with us.
Hey.
Yeah, so hey, Dr. Paul White. So can we actually go back to the slide if we could, Troy? And maybe sure would be helpful. Maybe we just kind of talk about what brought us here today, right? So I got to tell you, when I owned my shops, I was exposed through my church to a book called The 5 Love Languages. And I read this book called The 5 Love Languages, and I heard about it through my church. And it was that everybody has a primary or dominant love language, like a way they feel most loved or appreciated, right? And I read this book, and it just like really clicked for me. I was like, oh my gosh, this book is so amazing, right? And so what I would do is I would go around, I would tell people about this amazing book I read called The 5 Love Languages. And then like in my mind, I was like, you know what? This probably applies to like my work. So when I had my body shops, at that time, I wasn't familiar with the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace initially. And what I did is I was giving all my team the 5 love languages test to figure out what their love language was, because I felt if I could help them to feel more appreciated, then it would help our culture to be better. And then what happened was I stumbled across this book called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace by Gary Chapman and Dr. Paul White. And I was like, this book was just like, took me to a whole nother level with all of my team that I worked with. And so I was going around the country and I just tell people about this book in my seminars. And I'm like, you got to buy this book. This book is so awesome, right? And again, it's not a pass fail test. It's just understanding how your people feel appreciated. And then I just need to listen, y'all. I just need y'all to hear me on this podcast, right? So I'm doing a presentation in Texas at the ABAT show, the Auto Body of Texas Trade Association. Shout out to Jill Tuggle, right? And I was telling people they had me on a panel discussion about culture, and I was like, y'all got to buy this book, man. Like this is the book to buy if you want your culture to be awesome. And I was talking about the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. And then through our website, I get this email that says, hey, my name is Dr. Paul White, and I saw that you were talking about me in this article that was in a trade publication. And I call my team. I'm like, there's no way the real Dr. Paul White would be emailing me through my website. I was like, this has got to be spam. And Tiffany's like, why don't you call the phone number that's on there? So I go and I call the phone number, and sure enough, it was the Dr. Paul White. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you emailed me. It's like this famous person reached out to you, right? And so that's really how I got turned on to this book and ultimately led to Dr. Paul White. And Sheryl, I guess let's go to the next slide. And man, enough of me talking. Let's introduce our special guest for the On the Road Live. Go ahead, Sheryl.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. White, welcome. For those of you who are listening, whether live or later, let me just take a moment to introduce our special guest. Dr. Paul White, who you already have heard is the co-author of the book, The Appreciations in the Workplace, the 5 appreciations of the workplace. Dr. Paul White, he is a psychologist, speaker, and leadership expert who has worked with excuse me, just a second. There we go. Who makes work relationships work. He has been interviewed by the New York Times, BBC News, and other international publications. Dr. White, as I said, is a co-author of the best-selling book, The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace, which has sold over 600,000 copies, with Dr. Chapman, author of The 5 Love Language. Dr. White, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thanks. I'm glad to be with you all.
It is so great.
Sheryl, I'm sorry. One last thing I have to interject, and then I'm going to be quiet and let it be all about you, Dr. Paul White. But, Sheryl, you and I both have had the opportunity to meet a lot of authors of books, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of famous authors, right? I've had the opportunity of meeting, Jeffrey Liker, who wrote the book, The Toyota Way. I mean, again, I won't say names. I've met with a lot of authors. I have never met somebody that has written a book that, when my words were as famous, that it was as humble and as kind and as willing to take our calls as Dr. Paul White. Would you agree with that?
I would 1,000% agree with that, Mike. Yeah.
So, Sheryl, let's take it away.
Well, right, thanks. Well, and Mike, I'll pay you that $50 I owed you for saying that. So thanks.
Well, Dr. White, it's great to see you again. We actually had the honor of having Dr. White at the Collision Advice headquarters back in December, and so it's great to connect again.
Yeah.
And Troy, we can lose the PowerPoint for just a little bit if we could, please.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. So if we can, Dr. White, can we just dig right into some of the questions? I've got some questions for you, and then I think a couple have been submitted already beforehand from listeners. And for everyone that is watching live, go ahead and submit your questions into the chat panel, and we will take your questions live with Dr. White here and with Mike Anderson. So first question for you, Dr. White. Why do you think that appreciation is so often overlooked in industries like ours, industries like the collision repair industry, the blue collar industry?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of reasons. First of all, a lot of people, when you hear appreciation, like in the workplace, lots of times we think that it's the same thing as employee recognition. So if you got an employee recognition program, you say, oh, well, we already got that going, for birthdays or special days or when we hit our goals and so forth. And also, it hasn't really been modeled that much in our culture among especially guys that are sort of in the hands-on industries. But it's interesting to me that originally when we started out about 2011, that we really weren't targeting, auto repair or construction, whatever, but it's been accepted well as people have gotten to know it. And part of it is also that, you hear appreciation, you sort of think it's, you say thanks and you give a compliment or whatever, and that it's mainly words. And there are a lot of guys that aren't real verbal, and it's like, I told them thanks, a couple of years ago, why do I got to do it again? So there's part of that. But what we found with the 5 languages is that we had over, 450,000 people across the world take our assessment, and less than half of people in the workforce choose words as the main way that they want to be shown appreciation. So there's some, other ways to do it that you don't have to, do it real face to face and give a compliment, that kind of thing. I think it's largely misunderstandings about what it is.
Yeah. And so you mentioned recognition. So what is the difference between recognition and appreciation?
Yeah, I think there's 2 primary things. Employee recognition largely is institutional. It's the organization. I mean, it comes down from the top, either the leadership or maybe HR, and they got a program, and employee of the month and that kind of stuff, which is fine, sort of. I'll tell you why it's not great. But the other part is that recognition is largely about performance. I mean, that you hit goals, or you get, another certification or whatever it is, and you recognize that. And that's good. We want to do that. But it's what we see in real life is it doesn't have a lot of impact. I mean, in spite of over 90% of all companies, organizations have some form of employee recognition, that turnover is still high. Employee satisfaction and what's called employee engagement, people really sort of being there and motivated, is low, and it hasn't improved with recognition. And appreciation, we really believe, is about the person, that everybody, employee, supervisor, owner, we're people too. I mean, we're not just workers, we're not just production units, and we like to be, acknowledged for who we are besides what we do. There's some things that we can show appreciation for that's not related to work, which is important because there's sometimes in our lives that we're not real productive. I have twin sons, and when they were first born, man, it was sleep deprivation of the max, and I was not the best guy in my unit. And I didn't need to be praised. I just needed some, people to understand that, I was tired and I was working the best I could. And that it's appreciation is also person to person. It's not according to the org chart. So one of the key things we learned over time is that originally we focused on supervisors and managers to teach them how to show appreciation. Pretty quickly, we got to feedback like, hey, I like to be appreciated by my team members, and I want to show them appreciation. So we teach teams how to show appreciation to one another. And that turns out to be really important because it really is too much responsibility and weight for a supervisor to have to show, appreciation to everybody, that reports to them.
Yeah.
So just for clarity, if I may, real quick, I want to make sure I understand, Sheryl, is like an employee of the month or a birthday card, that's not necessarily appreciation. That's more recognition. Is that,
Yeah.
Did I understand that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, Sheryl. Just want to clarify.
No, you're great. And Dr. White, this is absolutely true. Several years ago, I was getting ready to do a presentation called What Technicians Want in the Workplace. Mm-hmm. And when I was meeting with technicians individually, asking them about different things, I had one technician tell me, I want to be appreciated for who I am, not what I can do for the organization.
Yeah, because, we have characteristics that are good. I like to work with cheerful people more than grumpy people. And if it comes down to sort of like a B+ applicant that's, cheerful and all that, and an A person can knock it out of the park, but they're sort of grumpy and a jerk, I'm going with the B+ person, because it affects everybody else. And so, there's just personality characteristics that doesn't show up on our worksheet, but it's important.
Absolutely. So I know that a lot of times, maybe shop owners struggle with showing appreciation in a way that feels authentic to them. So how would you recommend that they overcome this discomfort?
It's interesting. Sometimes it's important to understand what's the discomfort is about. I mean, is it that, you don't want to be viewed as a softie, and you praise somebody and you're afraid they're going to, use that to come and say, hey, you said I was doing a good job. How about a raise? So you don't want to get sort of manipulated. And also, it really hasn't been modeled for a lot of guys. And they don't know what it's like. I was working in Germany, actually, and one of the supervisors or leaders there said, we grew up in a culture that has a saying. It says, not being yelled at is praise enough. It's sort of like, you're not getting yelled at, it's good, But the reality is, we like to know that somebody values what we do. Yeah, we gotta motivate ourselves, right? I mean, ultimately, we're responsible, but at some point, you want to know that somebody values what you do and or who you are. And I just think it hasn't been part of our culture a lot. Yeah, dads aren't great at it typically, and clearly, athletic coaches have a history of being sort of yellers and that kind of stuff. So I think it's just sort of odd to us, and it's like, it's nice. And other people have said, I grew up hard. It was tough. Nobody patted me on the back or on the head, gave me, I turned out okay. What's up with these other guys, And so the fact is, though, culture has changed. In younger employees, they want to know that you know them or care about them as a person to some degree. I mean, and versus just that, how much they work they got out that day.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of Marcus Buckingham. You were at the Global Leadership Summit last year, I believe, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And his talk and how he talks about love in the context of work and how most people run from that word. But I see that very similar to appreciation too. It might be, something that we're not used to, or that hasn't been our experience, but it's absolutely impactful in our organizations and the people's lives that we work with.
Especially as work, the culture of work becomes more and more dominant in our lives. I mean, we work longer hours, or we're, commuting, and we don't have the kind of family and community relationships that there used to be around. So the work relationships, I think, have increased in importance.
Yeah. So can we talk through each language and maybe examples that would be, tailored to the people in our industry?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to name them, or you want me to?
You go first.
Okay. So the first one is words of affirmation. And it's pretty straightforward. They're words that are affirming. We're affirming the value or worth of somebody else. And, it starts with a thanks. That's the simplest one. We do lots of research, and we did some research, and we asked, what kinds of things don't you really like to hear? And one of the major things people said, I don't like to hear just good job. And the reason is it's sort of easy to do, doesn't take much effort. It's pretty vague. You could say it to your dog, it's like, okay, yeah. And sometimes maybe your manager really doesn't know whether, what a good job is on this technical job that you did. And so they're sort of, just blowing smoke. So we teach a model of using a person's name. We like to hear her name, and then say specific what you value about what a person did, and it could be about the job. It could be, I don't know, Bob, I really saw how you handled that customer who's sort of upset, and you really managed that well. So, settled them down. And then the third piece is to tell them why it's important, either to you or to the organization or to the client, and say, it helps to manage that well so that it doesn't escalate and then take more and more time of everybody's business and the customer left satisfied. So we do that. And sometimes the most sort of familiar way of it is just one-on-one, just, talking to somebody about it. For people that are really sort of more introverted or shy, they may not like the face-to-face, and they maybe sometimes might write a note, or they may write a text or leave a voicemail, so they don't have to dealing with what they say, and that feels sort of embarrassment. And that's sort of the most common. It's about 44% of all of employees choose words as a way that they like to be shown appreciation. So if you don't know somebody's language, that's a good guess.
Right.
Words can be done wrong, though, because there's a big group of people, about 40% of people, that don't want to be praised in front of other people, especially big groups. And so, like, sort of the employee of the year, employee of the month, and have to go up in front, that's more embarrassing, and it's not rewarding to them. So you're really sort of punishing them because that's the only thing you know how to do. So I think we have to be careful about that. But usually doing it privately works well, as long as you're specific. Be specific about it.
May I ask a question, Dr. White?
Sure.
So like in our industry, oftentimes, like, we have estimators who are quality control inspecting a vehicle. That means that at the end of the job, they're looking over the job to make sure that the body tech or the paint tech did a good job.
Right.
And oftentimes the only interaction between the two is when the estimator is going and getting the body paint tech or paint tech and saying, hey, this isn't right. Like, we only go get them when there's something wrong. So it's like that interaction is always negative. So that would be an opportunity for like an estimator to maybe not bring the body tech or paint tech back, but to go back and see them and say, hey, you did a really good job on Dr. Paul White's Porsche, right? Like, if we're very specific about what they did good, like the color match is really good or something like that, you're saying that would go a long ways. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah. I mean, if you can sort of give them, the big picture, because this could be like, there's a little ding here that they missed, right? The body guy. And say, man, the majority of this is great. It's really top quality. I just have a problem with this little piece here. If we can get that fixed. Yeah, that helps sort of, soften the blow a little bit. And if they're just hearing all these just criticisms and wrongs, at some point they're going to get pissed off. And, they're just not going to like it. And they say, this guy's negative all the time. He never says anything positive, even though that's sort of his job, right? To pick out mistakes. But yeah, it's good to give a big picture and say, man, I know this was a tough job. You did a good job overall, but we missed something here.
Thank you. Back to you.
So second language is quality time. Quality time is an interesting one that we found out that it's experienced or desired differently across generations. My generation, I'm a boomer, I'm an old guy. And for us, it was time with your manager or your supervisor, because time is, limited. And so you get time that you either get to share an observation about how things could go better or get input and learn from them. That was, sort of quality time for my generation. For younger workers, anybody 30, maybe 40, quality time, I tell leaders, just because a team member has quality time doesn't mean they want time with you. I mean, you may be great, you're wonderful, but they want to hang out with their peers, their colleagues. And so that could be having lunch together, going out after work together to, watch sports or do something. So just you got to know that it differs. And that's actually one of the things we learned across time, is that you can know a person's language, but it's really as important to know the specific action within the language and from whom, because they may want to get together and watch, a sporting event, a baseball game, this weekend with friends, but they're not going to invite the supervisor. So in our assessment, we let people choose not only the action, but with whom they want to do it. So you can get right to the point, you don't make a mistake. And that's 26% of the workforce. So about 1 out of every 4 people that, they feel valued and included. It's like if you go out to, out to dinner after work or something in a group, or you're going and you leave them out, that can hurt them because it makes them feel left out. So that's an important one. And I don't know, it'd be interesting for me to hear about if that can work on the job there, because like in hospitals and medical settings, they don't have time to do that on the job. It's usually before or after work. But tell me about that in your guys' workplaces.
Sheryl, you're first.
Yeah. So for us at my shops, that we would do, where we would go to lunch and do that together. We'd bring lunch, and also we would do like crab boil at the shop, or we would,
I'm game. I'm game for grandpa.
so we would do those kind of things during, working hours, but then we would also do things outside of working hours, whether it's like axe throwing or going go-kart racing or bowling, and doing
Cool.
those kind of things also. And also really help facilitate, other people doing things together, because as you know, the better relationships that each other have together, peer-to-peer relationships, the better that our work environment's going to be.
Right. Yeah. And one of the cool things about quality time is that it helps you get to know your colleagues in different ways, right? Because you're experiencing them in a different setting. And maybe you go to a baseball game, you didn't know that the guy used to pitch, and and he can explain all kinds of things that you didn't know about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a question, if I may, is that so quality time obviously is spending time with them doing something that they enjoy, right? But if I was, let's say that I and I'm not sure, so I'm asking the question. Let's say that I knew that one of my really awesome teammates, their language of appreciation was quality time, and I worked with them to be flexible so they could get off early twice a week to go coach their little boys baseball team. Would that give me the same result, or it would not, because I'm not spending time with them? I'm just freeing them up to go spend quality time what they enjoy with their son.
Yeah, that's a great example. So it depends. If in personal relationships, and one of the things we learned is that a person's appreciation language in work relationships isn't always the same as their love language in personal relationships. But say this guy's love language for his kid is time, you're hitting that. But actually what you're doing is you're doing what we would call a tangible gift. It's a benefit of time off, right? Is like a benefit. You're not paying them, but you're letting them off and getting to go. And a flexible schedule is a big one for both in parents and younger workers. So, but yeah, it's not the same as quality time with you. Sometimes you don't have to do something. Sometimes it's just people it's just getting your attention and being able to talk to you, and just whether it's talking about sports or world life or getting to know each other. Sometimes it's pretty low key.
So it could also be being in the moment with them. Like if I'm talking to them, to be engaged, not have distractions like on my phone or
absolutely
talking to other people, but more
they
one-on-one.
got your focus. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Third language, acts of service. And this is one that I think in some job settings, they're like, oh, geez, I got to rescue this guy again. It's not low performing colleagues. It's really those times when, giving them a compliment doesn't really mean much. It's like they're got a time deadline. They're trying to finish, a vehicle by the end of the day, or when the customer needs it, or sometimes if you're at the front desk, if a whole bunch of people show up all at once, can somebody help out here, right? And that's what it is. And it's about 21%, one out of every 5 people. But it's interesting. We do research. I just submitted an article for college and faculty, university faculty, but we've done it across cultures and across age groups. And one of the findings we just found out for a lot of settings is that men choose acts of service as their main appreciation language more than women do, for sure. Women tend to be more verbal and they like gifts. But for guys, so if you compliment them, they sort of live by the rule, don't tell me you support me, show me, right? And so show up. And if it's like, front desk and it's overwhelmed, it's not necessarily somebody's responsibility, but a colleague or maybe their supervisor, helps out and helps answer the phone or deal with somebody that's waiting in line when you got 5 or 6 people there. Some key things about acts of service is you want to, first of all, if you ask them, do you need some help? What's the answer? No, I'm good, right. Because that's the sort of culture. But if you ask, you say, I see, you got a lot going on here. What can I do to help? So a what instead of do you, right? Need help. Will get you further. And sometimes they'll still say, no, I'm good. And they need help, and you just push past it and say, look, really, I got time. I'd like to help you out here. What would be something I could do? And often the second time they'll say, okay, if you can handle this person here or take the phone, that'd be helpful. But you want to do it the way that they would do it. You don't want to teach them a new way at this point. That's not really encouraging to them. They, as long as they're doing it, within general standards. But and for acts of service make a difference, man. It does. You help out somebody out when they're stressed and dealing with, a lot of demands. It doesn't take a lot of time. It might 2 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, but it has an impact.
Yeah. Well, and for those of us who take on too much, and I think there are more people in the world than just me who do that, acts of service is absolutely impactful, because just sometimes we can feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah. And delegating part of the job and say, hey, if you could, order this part or, take care of this, that just help move this forward, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the context of collision repair, I mean, Mike, what do you think? I mean, I can see one way that this could be super helpful is, let's say, maybe there is someone who's behind on making all of their customer updates, and somebody comes along and say, hey, can I help you with your customer updates? Being very specific and not just, hey, what can I do to help?
Yeah, 100%. And I think about like when I was an owner, and let's say we had a bunch of cars that had to go at the end of a Friday or a Thursday, whatever it was, that, I'm back there with the person that's responsible for washing cars, and I'm helping them just so they get caught up and they're not so stressed, right? Or maybe it's helping someone to disassemble a vehicle. They need an extra set of hands. But it also takes my mind to think about, and Dr. Paul White, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Like, one time I had a shop client that said, hey, my best auto body tech is going to be leaving me. And he's leaving me because this other shop is going to offer him more money. And I was like, I know that guy, Luis. I don't think he's leaving for more money. And I actually called Luis. I said, what was the real reason that you were leaving or you're going to leave? And he said, well, this other shop is going to send me to Mercedes-Benz training. And I like the prestige of knowing that I'm a Mercedes-Benz certified technician. And while the current employer could not offer Luis the opportunity to go to Mercedes-Benz training, there were still other training opportunities they could give this technician. So I guess I'm asking for clarity in my own mind. If I know that somebody acts of service is important to them, if I send them to like some type of prestigious training, would that fall under that, or would that be more under like gifts?
It could be either, but yeah, you're right on target there. We do research, and our stuff is used in different countries, and in Singapore and in Brazil. Well, we work with Caterpillar, okay, and in some of their manufacturing, and in those two cultures, especially Singapore, which is like a really highly densely populated place, millions of people on this island. And the way that they like to be shown appreciation is you help them advance their career. And so you help them, either you give them a good reference or you get them into advanced training. So I think that clearly fits that. There's cost to it as well. But yeah, helping them be able to get a better job or better skills so they can get paid more and so forth clearly is an act of service. Yeah. And that's about, I think I said about 22%. So 1 out of every 5.
Awesome. It's so cool to me, Sheryl, the way, because I know like when we think the auto body industry, like I think if we were to go up to the average auto body tech or an owner and we talked about the 5 language of appreciation, everybody's like, I'm not into all that touchy feely stuff. But I promise you, if you're listening to this podcast, it isn't something that works. It's applicable. I'm telling you, if you really understand how somebody feels appreciated, they will run through walls for you. I mean, they'll stay late. They'll come in early. I mean, it'll make your culture, just amazing. I'm sorry. Back to you, Sheryl, Dr. Paul.
No.
I'm such a believer in this.
And I agree 100%. And, some people will say, well, we'll just do it, because, that's what we need to do in our organization. But what I've always said this, that we want to be authentic in giving appreciation, right? And so we don't want to give it just to get a result. The result is a byproduct of being authentic with people and actually caring and wanting to make an impact in people's lives that makes them feel appreciated. So
and I would agree with that. I mean, there's some people that are harder to appreciate than others, right? I mean, they're a little prickly, or they're still learning some skills, or showing up to work on time, and I tell people, don't try to fake it, because people can read through that, and then it undermines any kind of trust you have, and it creates real problems. And in our training that, I came there to y'all's place, but we have a training program that somebody from like a manager or an HR person could go through online and then run teams through it. It's a half day kind of thing, and teach people how to show appreciation to one another. But we say, if you're not feeling it, don't try to fake it, and we'll help you figure it out, because there's some ways to get there. Fourth language is tangible gifts. And it's not bonuses, it's not raises, it's not that kind of thing. It's just small stuff that shows that you're getting to know your colleagues and what they like. I mean, whether that's you bring in their favorite cup of coffee in the morning, or maybe it's a hot day in the summer and you know that they like, Diet Mountain Dew, and you get them a big gulp of Diet Mountain Dew, or tickets to, the minor league game there or whatever. It doesn't cost a lot of money. In fact, lots of times it doesn't cost anything. I mean, maybe it's something online. Maybe you got a colleague that's starting to coach their kids soccer team, and you know about this website that's got some cool training videos, and you share the website with them, or a magazine about, the SEC football teams coming up this fall, and you get them you got to make sure you get the team right. You give an Auburn fan an Alabama thing, it's not going to go right. So. But
Roll Tide didn't go with Auburn fans.
Yeah. So, but it just shows that, you're getting to know them as a person. Remember, appreciation is about them as a person, not about jobs. So you don't get them a tool or, something like that. It's you're getting to know them. But it's interesting. A lot of recognition reward companies focus on gifts and stuff, and that's okay. But we find out only 9% of people choose gifts as their main language. So it's like it doesn't feel real personal. Usually jobs, employers are not great at, they give everybody the same thing, which it doesn't do anything, because it's like, it's not about them as a person. It's like, oh, great, I got another mug, thanks. Especially any kind of logo wear. I worked with a national beverage company, and the employee said, they feel like they're sort of being used as walking billboards, because the only thing they ever got was, just logo wear. So gifts can be good, especially if it's personal and if it's matched with another language like time or words. You write them a note and say, hey, man, I really appreciate the extra time you spent on that project. Here's, just a little something, a gift card for you and your wife to go out to, a little nicer dinner or something like that.
So I got to put a disclaimer out there, Sheryl and Dr. Paul White. Like, our industry is famous for pizza parties.
Okay.
Like, everybody just wants to buy everybody flipping pizza for lunch and think that, oh, well, I bought a pizza last week. I don't know what. Ladies and gentlemen, 5 languages of appreciation is more than just buying your pizza some pizza from Domino's. I just need to get that out. I had to get that off my chest. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and food is actually the number one gift that's given, right? So whether it's for a person or a team, whether it's bagels in the morning or, donuts or pizza. And the way you individualize that is you find out what people like. Yeah. So, I have a team member who is gluten intolerant. So if we get pizza, we're getting gluten-free pizza, for her. Or, somebody really likes black olives or whatever it is. You can individualize it, but pizza is not the universal appreciation language that's going to, fit for
everybody. And another thing, Dr. Paul White, I really need you to talk to my team, because for a couple Christmases ago, they got me a subscription to Hair Club for Men, and it wasn't not my language of appreciation.
Mike, that's not what you got a couple Christmases ago.
I know. Well, one guy told me, he said he was a serious type 1 diabetic, and his team got him a box of candy for Christmas. He thought they were trying to knock him off. So anyway, yeah.
Oh, we'll have to get Mike to model what he got for Christmas a couple
Yeah.
Christmases ago.
All right.
Yeah.
And then the last one that people in the US get weird about is physical touch. And they go, oh, we're going to get sued, or, and actually, I mean, it's learned from other cultures. I mean, like our Latin friends, either from Central and South America or Southern European, the Spanish and the Portuguese and the Greek. I mean, they're far more physical. I mean, they greet one another with a hug and sometimes a kiss on the cheek or something. And no physical touch just feels real weird to them. But it's less than 1% in the U.S. culture. And largely, we're talking about spontaneous celebration, right? I mean, it's a high five when you finish a tough job, or maybe a fist bump when you figure out a problem, maybe a congratulatory handshake when you seal a deal with a company, and it's all the person that's receiving it is always the one that sort of determines what they're comfortable with. You can't sort of force. Sheryl, you live in the South, they do a lot of hugs in the South, side hugs.
Yes, we do.
And that's okay in some situations, and in others it's sort of weird. So you got to be a little careful about it, but be aware that it's not always as negative as a lot. In New York and New Jersey, it's like, you're close enough, I can see you, thanks, but in other parts of the country, it's a little more out there. So, we want to help people learn each other's appreciation languages and the actions, so that you don't waste time doing stuff, time and money doing stuff that doesn't mean anything, doesn't get you the impact. It's like, yeah, we got, t-shirts, whoopee-doo, I mean, and it doesn't take a lot of the right thing to make a difference. It's not like you have to be doing this every day, week. Oh, hey, Tony showed up today. Woo! Let's throw a party. It's like, you get into a rhythm, and it's not just about making people feel good. I mean, I think sometimes that's a misunderstanding. We got lots of research that shows that when team members feel valued, here's what happens. They show up to work. They show up on time. They come back from break on time. They don't call in sick as often. They don't have as many on-the-job accidents. They stay longer. They're employed longer. You got, longevity, less turnover. There's less conflict. They follow policies and procedures more frequently than, just doing it their own way. And you have better customer service ratings because they're not grumpy and agitated when they're relating to the customers. So and they're more productive, and the company becomes more profitable. In fact, there's a move in like bigger companies to have, for like, I don't know, call it General Motors, whoever, that they got to prove that they're doing things to show their employees that they're treating them well because they're more profitable. So somebody that invests in that wants to invest in a company that is taking care of the people, and another company does the same job but doesn't, because these guys are going to be more profitable. So anyway.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So let's say we have managers, shop owners, technicians, estimators watching today. How can they figure out each other's primary language of appreciation?
Well, I'll tell you what doesn't work. And what doesn't work is, if I want to show you appreciation, how should I do it?
Right.
It's a weird question and conversation in our culture. And you're not going to get much. They're going to say, I don't know, tell me thanks, and so you don't get much. And if you try to watch and see what happens, if they appreciate somebody else or whatever, you don't have that many data points to make a conclusion. So that's why we created this assessment. There's a code that comes with the book, but we've also created codes for tradespeople, because the actions are different, right? An act of service in an auto body shop is different than it is in a hospital or for a school teacher. And then we can create group profiles for the team, because it's fine to learn what your own language is, but really the goal is for teammates and leaders, managers, supervisors to learn of one another, so that you can show the appreciation in the way that's meaningful to them. Because really, that's when it gets weird, is when somebody keeps one to spend time, and time is your least valued one. We identify that, and it just feels weird. And you feel like, dude, I'm trying to reach out, but you got to get it right.
So doing the assessment, whether using the code in the book or a code from your website, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that correctly. Okay, so now let's say our team has taken the assessments. How do we implement this in a practical way where people are really learning each other's appreciation style and using this on a daily basis?
Yeah, so there's a couple options. The simplest, maybe the least effective, but is in the book each chapter that has about each language. There's discussion questions, and you could have some discussions over lunch. That'd be fine. We put together this training that takes a half day, or you can do it like an hour and a half every week or two, and it helps facilitate. And it has sort of instructional videos, some slides. It has a facilitator's guide with discussions, questions, all that kind of stuff. And either you can have somebody internal do it, or on our website, we have a list of people that have gone through it. They're professional consultants, and they come in and got them all over the country, and they can give that. I think you guys may be able to provide that as well. So,
yeah.
And that's really where it's at. I mean, it's learning how to do it. It actually becomes sort of fun. I mean, so we had an article written about us in the New York Times about this mining company that we worked with, and they got concrete truck drivers and skid load drivers and stuff. And you wouldn't think about like being big about appreciation, but they took this on, and they had the company create little stickers for their hard hats of what their language was, and it's actually become like an onboarding process for them, that they want to know how to encourage people. Because why it wasn't just about feeling good is that those are tough people to find, especially in South Dakota, and they had to keep them, right? And so they were stealing drivers from other industries because the word got out that it was a good place to work.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we also have a couple questions that have come in from listeners. So I've got my first one here. It's an anonymous question, so I'm not sure who submitted it, but it says, Dr. White, how can collision repair shops effectively integrate appreciation and recognition into their daily operations to not only boost morale, but also improve overall team performance?
Well, I would say, it's like anything, there's some steps. One is you want to make sure the leadership, whether that's the ownership or the management, if they're different, understands what appreciation is versus recognition. And so easiest way to do that, it really is get the book. It's an easy read, and you can do it a chapter at a time and out of order and all that kind of stuff, so that they understand the big picture. Or sometimes I'll come in and I do, or even virtually, I'll do sort of a 45-minute or hour session to explain that. And then sort of figure out a plan. And you don't have to do it all at once. I mean, we went all the way across Miller Coors across the country, but started just in one spot, and then it just sort of grew there. So if you've got multiple sites or a big team, do a little pilot group with a group and have them take the assessment, and either have a group discussion or go through the training. And then what happens is it sort of creates a positive peer pressure of like, well, hey, why do they get to do this? And I'd like to find out about that. And so it sort of grows that way. But it's always managers, owners, everybody's busy. I got it. And so you got good intentions. Yeah, that sounds good. We ought to do that sometime. And that ain't happening if you're going to do it sometime, And so I always say, hey, you got to start somewhere. And so find out about it. You can go to our website. We got a lot of videos. We got a YouTube channel. You can sort of see about it. And we got testimonials about it. We're working with Mercedes-Benz right now, Daimler Trucks, North America, Ford, in some different countries. So it works. I mean, if you do it, it works. If you don't do it, it doesn't work. So
would you recommend, Dr. White, that as a business owner or a manager, that we actually have when we have a new hire, that maybe we have them do the assessment. I hope assessment's the right word.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
we actually determine their appreciation language during the onboarding process, and then we try to be any tips for how to keep that like top of mind as a manager.
Yeah, I mean, and there's two things about that. I mean, like the mining company I told you about, they do it, but they do it not right when they're onboarding them at first. It's actually when they sort of pass probation, because sometimes, you know, with some positions they don't stay real long, and you don't want to incur additional. I mean, the cost isn't that much. It's like $45, but it actually becomes sort of a deal that when it becomes part of your culture, it's like, oh, you don't know your appreciation language yet. You know, and it's sort of like, you know, a little bit of a badge when you get to take it and find out and go through the training.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so my question is, so let's say, you know, we've got organizations and they do the assessments and they start this conversation and they really work on this. Sustain is always the hardest in anything that you do in business or in life. So are there any keys that you have, or any tips that you have to help, you know, teams sustain this? So it's not just a one and done.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, we've been working with some companies 6 and 8 years or more, and they keep doing it. One is that you incorporate appreciation into some of your structure. Okay, so that if you have a team meeting, it's like, okay, let's start out and let me hear some reports of some positive things, maybe from the customers, or, you know, what's something that somebody's done that you really valued and appreciated. And so you incorporate it into your structure, because culture is both a combination of spontaneous actions, you know, that people sort of think of, and structured stuff. Spontaneous ones are great and they're sort of fun, but they don't last long. Structure is where you need, it's not super exciting necessarily, although it can be if you design a good event, but it's like, okay, this is important, and it communicates the value and importance that the employees see from the management, that, hey, this is important, that this is not just the flavor of the month kind of training thing that we're going to go through here.
Yeah. Well, I love it. Mike, did you have any other questions for Dr. White?
Nope. And if we could just pull up, Troy, the PowerPoint slide there, because I think, Sheryl, you've got some resources on there, correct?
Yes.
Next slide, Troy.
A few things. As I mentioned, Dr. White came to the Collision Advice headquarters in December. I also had the opportunity to do some of the training that he referenced, where I am now certified through his organization to teach this content. And so you can reach out to Collision Advice. There's a Collision Advice QR code, and you can go directly to the 5 Languages of Appreciation website. You'll see that QR code to the left. Dr. White, you also mentioned that people can email you. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, we got this email there. It's yesdrpaul@gmail, and I got a real email, but this is for presentations. And if you email me and just put collision advice in the subject line, I'll send you a sample report of like the trade version of our assessment. I'll send you a sample group profile, because again, it's fine to know your own, but we show what each person's language and actions are, and actually how they don't, but it should be shown appreciation, so you don't accidentally make a mistake. And I'll include that New York Times article as well about the miners, because it's sort of interesting. But if you email me, I'll get you that stuff. That way you can take a look at it and see its value for your teams.
That is fantastic. We appreciate your generosity and everything, with your time today, your time with us in December, how you're willing to give so many resources to our listeners.
You bet. Thanks for your support out there, and for the good work that you guys do.
Dr. Paul White, thank you, sir. The kindness you've shown us, and just your accessibility is, again, I've never experienced anything like it. And just thank you for having such a giving heart. Like you totally love people and just want to help people. And it's so obvious. I just want to say thank you.
Sure. My pleasure.
I guess we go to the next slide, Ms. Sheryl.
Yes, I have one question for you, Mike, though, because we had listeners submit a question before the podcast, and one came in for you. So this is from Claudio, and the question is it worth keeping OEM certs? They have no support nor accountability, is what came through.
So, Claudio, and if we can go to the next slide, please, Troy. So, Claudio, first of all, I think not all OEM certifications are made the same, right? I think there are some OEM certifications that absolutely do have merit and they do reward the shops. I can tell you that right now, a lot of shops are onboarding with the Lexus program. And I can tell you that I am talking to shops that are certified through Lexus that are telling me that they're seeing anywhere from 5 to 10 jobs a month. So I can tell you there are shops that are telling me that absolutely works. I can also tell you that several OEMs like General Motors, BMW, Honda, Acura have rolled out accident assistant apps. And I can tell you firsthand, I was speaking at a conference last Thursday in California. And I can tell you there was a lady that was at that conference. She was going to run to her shop real quick during the break and come back. And she was in an accident. And OnStar actually, and it was a GM vehicle, OnStar actually notified the EMTs and called her and then asked her if she had a shop in mind. So I will tell you that I believe through telematics that all the things we've been talking about and envisioning for years is now actually becoming real. Obviously, there's OEMs that restrict part sales, and so there's benefits to being a certified collision shop with them. So I would say don't be discouraged with OEM certifications. I think we're just scratching the surface of seeing the potential that's going to come from those, specifically with some of the collision and accident assistant apps that are being rolled out by some of the OEMs. So I would, again, I'm high on OEM certs. I'm still all in on that. And I think it's only going to get better in the future. And matter of fact, our next podcast is going to be live Monday, August 11th at, again, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Claudio, one of the things I'm going to talk about is I'm just going to give a overview of the state of the industry. I'm going to talk about things like what percentage of customers are wanting to pay out of pocket these days. We're going to talk about some trends that we're seeing, like 27% of consumers increased their deductibles last year. We're going to talk about trends such as 1 out of 10 consumers is uninsured today. And what does that mean for our industry? We're going to talk about some OEM trends. We're going to talk about some of the accident assistant apps. We're going to talk about claims count. Is claims count really down? And how many people are having accidents outside of normal business hours? So our next podcast in October, I'm just going to give a state of the industry, kind of like a news report about what's going on. And are we ever going to go back to the days that we had a few years ago where we had abundance of claims and work, or is this really the new norm? So looking forward to having everybody on our live podcast on the road with Mike Anderson, serving up some collision advice with my awesome, incredible teammate, Ms. Sheryl Driggers, on Monday, August 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All
Sheryl,
right.
close us out.
Absolutely. We have a few things to end the chat panel. I want to read Dr. White. Peter says, do the basics well, care about your people, remember names and what's going on in their lives, and genuinely engage with your people. They'll run through walls for you as you would for them. Ashley said she loves your book. And Troy said, thanks for everything that you do. So thank you so much for being with us today. I know how busy your schedule is, and we appreciate you joining us.
You bet. I'm glad to be able to do it.
Thank you, Dr.
All
White.
right.
Grateful for you, sir. God bless you.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you. Take care,
Bye.
everybody. Talk to you soon.